there's something quite rewarding in being able to put that whole portfolio together and ensure that I'm always doing something to leave the world a little better than I found it. It's the spring of 1983, and I am terrified and excited at the same time. A wonderful mentor and colleague of mine called me on the phone one day and said, I'd really love to have you come and participate in a board meeting with me for the San Francisco Girls Choir. Well, I had no idea really why he was asking, other than he knew that I was an organizational development professional and I had some capability to facilitate at the time. I wasn't involved in coaching yet. And I said, why me? And he said, you have a heart for people maximizing their potential. I'd never heard anybody say that before. That was quite fascinating to me. Wonderful reflection back. So I went to my first board meeting and I met everybody at the table, and boy, was I a little intimidated. They were people with lots of money who invested in this particular girls' choir and them touring all over the world. There were people who didn't have a lot of money but had skills and capability and connection and networks. And frankly, I kind of felt out of my league. But I learned something really important. This was my first nonprofit board experience because not only did I facilitate the strategic planning session, but they invited me to join the board. So I was with them for about 5 years, sitting on that board and contributing. And what I learned was that it takes many points of view to see clearly what is it that moves an organization forward. And one of the real big difficulties in the nonprofit world is an overriding culture that has a scarcity mindset. And it's easy to feel like everything is about raising money. And lots of people end up on nonprofit boards because they have wealth that they're available to share with things and situations and initiatives and efforts and populations that align with their own passions. And that's fantastic. Always good to be able to have extra resource to contribute. But there's something much, much more important, which is when we're connected to the noble cause of that nonprofit, we realize that that's a system that needs to be healthy. How does a system get healthy? It gets healthy by being able to see itself, by being able to set clear goals, to be sure that the personnel that are implementing the projects and initiatives and tactics to achieve those goals are well prepared, that they have the capability and access to resource and time, that they are recognized for the contribution they're making, that they're being responsible and diligent to be ethical and to listen carefully to the population they serve, that they're provided with access to the board to be able to hear the bigger picture and know how to carry the torch on that bigger picture as they're going about their day-to-day activities. It's a big responsibility, both in terms of what's called the fiduciary and the governance of a nonprofit. And these were things I knew nothing about. So I had a huge capability lift as I began to really understand what the role of nonprofit board leadership was all about. But there's a third thing that shows up, and it's the corollary to the scarcity mindset. I noticed that boards actually have a very abundant mindset. And sometimes it's that paradox that's the most challenging. The board wants the world on a platter, and the staff says, oh my gosh, how in the world are we going to pull this off? Can I get enough money? Can I write enough grants? And somewhere there's a balance between the two ends. And to me, this is what wholeness as the board director is really all about, being able to listen to the staff, to put a dose of reality, to be with what is, and enough aspirational goals that it has them stretching into and believing more is possible than they thought at the beginning. Now, Mind you, most nonprofit board assignments are unpaid. Some are paid, but most are not. So this is something you do from your heart, and it's really easy to start to resent the time that you're putting in. So we have that responsibility too, to keep balanced in ourselves and stay connected to what matters in a way that has us be fully present with our colleagues, with funders and donors, with the populations being served, being present at fundraisers, being available to brainstorm and co-create with the staff. So attending to ourselves in the way we do in our livelihoods equally is important when you're working in a nonprofit board setting. I know for me, over all these many years, my nonprofit board work has been the place that I have actually restored myself. It's so easy to overwork in my regular livelihood by the nature of what it is to run a business today. But the nonprofit work helps me connect to what I care about, things like the planet and racial equity and eliminating human trafficking and creating healthy communities. These are passions that I have. And when I'm connected into nonprofits that are contributing to those four causes that are so important to me, I never resent my time. And I'm able to prioritize and balance the for-profit work and the nonprofit work, and of course my family. So there's something quite rewarding in being able to put that whole portfolio together and ensure that I'm always doing something to leave the world a little better than I found it before I came on. To me, this is what it means to really shape a world where everyone gets to love their life's work. That's what inspires me to nonprofit board directorship. So hopefully you've heard me share quite a bit about the personal development that occurred by being part of a nonprofit board and many boards over the years. It's equally important to my professional development. And here's the thing. When you're sitting inside of an organization, there's an implicit power structure that comes by moving up the ladder and having a bigger span of control, a larger budget, more people reporting to you. How do you learn how to do that? Well, I actually found in a nonprofit, you don't actually have any of that implicit power. You build it through relationships. And here's the thing I learned really early on. Relationships are what make the world go round. So all of the relationship building I was doing with my fellow board colleagues, with the staff of the nonprofits, with the populations that they were serving, with the donor community, those skills were immediately transferable. And I started to realize it's never about the power associated with a title or a job role. It's about how I exercise that power. And when that's most directed to compassionate, empathetic, present, humble, authentic leadership, everything goes better. So I had an opportunity to learn those skills and deeply embed them through my nonprofit board experience. And it supported me to make my way in my corporate work with far less stubbing my toe and gaffes in my relationships, because I understood the value of that emotional intelligence and how to create deep trust and acceptance and respect and inclusion in every relationship in the organization. So there is a reciprocity, if you will, between volunteering in a nonprofit board and furthering your own professional career. And I hope you'll make that choice. Everyone, including you, will be better for it. A couple of other distinctions that are important to consider when you're choosing to be on a nonprofit board. It is different than being a volunteer for an organization. There is accountability, as I said, for the fiduciary management of the organization, as well as the governance and how it sustains its longevity and manages itself. Even as you hear those words, you're likely already understanding that when somebody sees this on your resume, that you were actually on the board of a nonprofit, they're going to immediately understand to translate that to mean that you know something about governance, meaning management and oversight, and fiduciary responsibility, meaning numbers and how numbers work and how important budgets and forecasts and meeting goals and measuring are to being successful in the world. So that should be a compelling why for you to pursue being part of a nonprofit board. Now, how do you get started? Well, what do you care about? What are you volunteering for? Have you asked anybody that's on the board what it's like to be a board member? What are the things they're looking for? What are the qualities, traits, skills, experience, interests that make for a viable board member? If the only reason they want you is for your money, that might not be the best place for you to start. Look for a board that's looking for people who are willing to roll up their sleeves. A little bit of sweat equity as the board director is a great place to begin because there's a mutual development opportunity there. And of course, the other thing that's important here is recognizing that you have a responsibility to fulfill your commitments. Do what you say you're going to do. What are we talking about here? We're talking about accountability. And when you can do that, when you're not getting paid for it, just imagine what you're going to learn about follow through and being reliable and congruent and consistent. Those are all the qualities of trust. You will have learned how to do that before you've gotten paid for it. And as a result, you can be all of who you are when you're in that environment of your livelihood, fully transferring that capability. With the start of 2022, I have a moment in time now where I'm not on a nonprofit board. I've just completed I think my third round of volunteering for our professional association, the International Coaching Federation, which has always been a deep passion of mine. And I'm thrilled to have been able to give back in many different ways since 2009. But I'm actually quite excited about this blank space in my book. I have an opportunity now to look around and say, what matters to me today? Where are the initiatives and populations and causes that I want to bring my leadership capability to? I have lots of places I already volunteer, but it's time now for me to up level and think about the next place to contribute. And I hope that all of you, as a result of watching this video, give yourself some time to push your chair back at some point today. Take 5 minutes and stare out the window. Management guru Peter Drucker always said, the real mark of a leader is the one who can disconnect from what she's doing all the time and do a little daydreaming about what's possible. That's important here so that you can make a choice about what nonprofits to approach and make the request. I want to serve on your nonprofit board because it aligns with what I care about and what's important to me, and make your case so that you can have the benefit of the reciprocity that comes from being a good servant to the things you care about and what it develops in you and you can bring to your livelihood.